Hello, can everybody hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, I must apologize for our technical issues. I must apologize. Christy, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear clearly.
Okay, good. Oh, good. Okay, so we're gonna get straight into it. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Farah, and as the chair of the Durban branch, I would like to welcome all of you to this leadership masterclass session. To our panelists, ladies, it is a privilege to host you today and to have you share your knowledge and experience and guidance with us. So in this masterclass, we are going to learn a little bit about how different personalities experience the COVID pandemic. We're going to gain some insights as to how to build team effectiveness, because remote working is likely to be a permanent fixture for a number of businesses, but working from home doesn't work for everyone, and leadership must be alive to those downsides. So managing teams remotely can prove far from straightforward, and companies need to make sure that they're going out of their way to support employees' well-being. So we need to ask a few questions. How does remote working affect leadership styles? So if you're a leader, is your leadership style still effective and impactful? And in your teams and as well as individuals, how are you receiving and responding to those leadership styles? And how does remote working affect team dynamics? So today we are extremely lucky to have two ladies who are experts in leadership and impact of teams, and that's Dr. Christy Lees and Professor Gerwel Provis. Thank you, ladies. So I want to appeal to everybody who's still with us, and thank you so much for being with us. Please engage with these two ladies and ask them as many questions as you possibly can. We're going to try and make this not a webinar. It's going to be an interactive session. So please ask them as many questions as you possibly can. So I'm going to give you a little bit about Dr. Christy Lees. Dr. Lees is an industrial and counseling psychologist, is a leadership and engagement expert with over 20 years of international work experience in the private and public sector. She is passionate about assisting organizations and teams to get to the future faster and be part of the solution of the sustainability crisis of our time. Christy, an adjunct faculty at UKZN Graduate School of Business and Leadership, guest lecturer for Gibbs and Duke CE. She is also registered with Health Professionals Council South Africa and the British Psychological Society Coaching Committee. Her recent leadership projects across sector designed and delivered a 7-month leadership program for the board managers and on the bench talent. The program wove together assessment tools, coaching with Mano learning on courage and vulnerability, neurosciences, multiplier leadership, and design thinking with learning labs through the time. Welcome, Christy. Thank you. And Professor Gerwel Provis is an academic in the Graduate School of Business and Leadership at UKZN. She holds a PhD Leadership Studies, MCOM Leadership Studies, BCom Honors Industrial and Organizational Psychology, and BCom majoring in Business Management and Industrial and Organizational Psychology. She has successfully supervised a number of postgraduate students, including master's students, MBA and Leadership Studies, and doctoral students, PhD in Leadership Studies and Doctor Business Administration. I'm actually going to leave the bios there. There's so much more that I can say about these two ladies, but I'm actually going to leave the bios right there. So please, I'm going to now hand over, please, and I appeal to everybody who's on here. And again, a heartfelt thanks for staying. I know you're going to gain a lot out of this. So I'm going to hand over to Christy. Dr. Lees.
Thank you very much for having me as part of the committee and being part of the team. And I think the fact that we're starting a couple of minutes later is quite fitting for working virtually and virtual connects. But I guess it's probably how a lot of us are feeling. It's that November time of year. and we're all feeling a little bit tired and a little bit worn out. So with that in mind, it's really great to be together. I'm going to talk to you from a leadership coach perspective by sharing stories and examples and weaving together some fun things that work and that importantly don't work. So as we come together, let's just contextually position our time. How leaders respond to COVID and how leaders and organizations and businesses respond now will have a significant impact in the future. And each and every one of you are part of organizations, businesses, and are leaders. So this is the backdrop and the foundation for our conversation. And if we're honest, these are really challenging, trying, stressful times that we're living in. But more so than ever before, and in my work of consulting and coaching and teaching since March to now in November, I know that this is your time to shine. I know that this is your time to shine and move forward as we navigate 2021. So there's a crisis going on, a crisis within our health, there's a crisis within the economic situations, and there's a crisis of values. But more importantly, and in these crises we're seeing a significant injustice, racial injustice, vast inequality. And it's about time that we come together and move and navigate through this leadership crisis we're going on. I know that each one of you have been talking about VUCA, and Prof has led these conversations within a VUCA context. Well, 2020 has been VUCA on steroids, really. Yeah. So we really had a meaningful experience in living through VUCA. So again, I'm going to say how we respond as leaders, how we respond in our teams will define us moving forward. There have been teams that I know have done the work, and I'll talk through the models. They've done the work on themselves, they've done the work on connections, and they've risen through this challenge. And we've seen others where there's been a face forward and a failure. So how, question, and you can maybe post it in the chat box, please. How have leaders responded during COVID? And we've seen how countries have responded to COVID. What are we seeing? We've seen a vast polarization. We've seen organizations that have countries where it's just become political. And it's the same as in a team where there is a disconnect, fingers start getting pointed. It's your fault. There's a blame factor. It's hard, it's grudging hard work. So we're going to talk into this in our time. So these were some themes just to land and position why this conversation is so important. Another critical factor that we're seeing is that years and years and years and years ago, people looked to the church or the body to provide guidance through a crisis. People looked to government to provide some form of leadership through it. But more so are we seeing communities looking to organizations, to business, to lead through. So the questions are, how are we going to stand up? How are we going to show up? As we're losing faith, maybe, in some political regimes, in government, businesses and organizations and you as leaders are being forced to step into and step out of your paradigm, especially with these grand challenges of corruption, vast inequality, racial injustice, gender challenges. So where do you weigh in? Where do you stand up and speak? Because we've seen what happens when we don't stand up and speak. And what do you stand for? So in this time of challenge is an opportunity. So I'm appealing to you to do the body of work around your purpose, values and where you stand up. Because that organization that might say to themselves, I'm just manufacturing hand soap, have made a significant contribution around childhood mortality. So we're stepping out of our bound. Where do we stand up? Where do we speak up? And what is our contribution? So positioning leadership and importantly, teams and how we make a contribution. So I'm going to share a screen and hopefully you can share the screen. And as we move through the slides, I'm going to position importantly the paradigm of me, we, work, and world. Who I am, and who I am as a person has a significant bearing on how we create team, the we part, and the teams that we come together and make have an impact upon us as an organization and the work level, which so too have an impact upon the world, and vice versa. The grand challenges, the injustices, the challenges that are happening at a world level have an impact upon the strategy and the organization at work, and then teams, and then for us as individuals. So the starting point is me, the starting point is you, the starting point is us, and knowing ourselves. As a coach and a person working in leadership development, there are multiple tools that I use. Some are the Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finder. A tool that I'd like to offer, an insight that I'd like to offer is the Enneagram. And the Enneagram is a wonderful tool to help you gain insight into yourself. It's a wonderful tool to how we create teams, and teams where there's understanding, and also very simply to explain why people behave in the way that they do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an overview of the Enneagram, explain the different types, and then we'll have a fun conversation in the chat, and then we'll move on to teams. And that will be our time. So I'm mindful that we started a little bit late. So the Enneagram, it's called the Enneagram because of 9, Ennea, and gram types. There are 9 different types of explaining personality. And fundamentally, we have all 9 different types in us. But because of childhood experiences and because of events that have happened in our life, we have a predominant type, which is rooted in an area of avoidance. We have a predominant way of behaving or showing up in the world. And I guess this is just about going, okay, this is who I am as a predominant type, or these are my peers or my colleagues that I work with. And this explains why they behave the way that they do. So there's no judgment, there's no wrong or right, but this is what you can expect from that person. So I'm going to start with the 1. This is the person who's got a very keen, swift eye for quality and for the detail. And they very quickly will say where things are not looking correct in a PowerPoint presentation, or if there's any spelling mistakes. This 2 type is very good at putting the needs of others first. They're very good at being empathetic and caring. And then there's the 3. This person is very good at driving through a to-do list. They have high amounts of energy and can if we can often look at a 3 going, oh my gosh, I can't believe you do all of that in a day. And then the person with creativity, they've got a very good way of doing and having a very unique argument. So whatever they're doing, they will do it in a very creative way. I think a better word to describe the 4 is creative. And then the 5, this person loves the detail. They're very comfortable in the detail, and they have a belief about themselves that they're not very good with interacting with people. The 6, this is the person who, when COVID came about, they said, well, I told you so, this was going to happen. So they're naturally quite analytical and very good at risks and preempting risks. And then the 7 is very, they love new things, they're allured by, you would see a 7 automatically. They make things more fun for other people, can be quite upbeat and energetic. I love the bigger picture. And then there's the 8, who's very comfortable expressing their view, saying where they're comfortable, what should be done. So he'll be that person who will comfortably speak first in a team meeting. And then the 9. This person loves, they're very good at reading teams and reading where areas of tension are, and mediating and ensuring that everyone comes together. So as an example, I'm a high 7 with a sub 9, and my husband is a 5, very definitely a 5. So when we go scuba diving together, which we love doing, I'm the person who jumps in the ocean and often looks out into the big blue and makes sure that we don't miss anything. And my husband, when he jumps in the ocean, he gets a tiny little magnifying glass, and he'll spend like hours looking at this tiny detailed thing. And every now and again, I need to pat him on the shoulder and go, look up, get a bigger picture. And every now and again, he needs to pull me down into the detail. So a nice complement between the 5 and the 7. So that's the high level Enneagram. But what have we seen in COVID? We've seen multiple responses. And in myself, I know there have been times when I've been reactive, I've maybe lashed out, or, in a sense, as we talk about, haven't been using all my faculties correctly. And these are various different responses and stress responses with behavior and rationale underneath. And COVID has consumed us from a me, we, work and world level, and the various changes and what's going on. And here we are, amidst with the vaccine, how the vaccine is going to be distributed, elements of leadership, personal leadership and team coming through, even around the vaccine, which I'll loop back and discuss. So for our Enneagram types, how do we behave under stress? So maybe they've been part of you which have had a various stress response. As the 1, they've become very frustrated with the rules and the detail. And there's been maybe some lashing out when people haven't followed the rules. So this is a very good friend of mine. If someone has walked around without a mask, she's literally like huffed and puffed, and if people haven't followed the rules, you can see that stress response coming through. The 2, if it weren't in a COVID response, they would be incredibly kind and generous. But when a 2 is stressed, they actually withdraw and there's nothing to give. So for someone who's used to being on the receiving end of this giving type of person, it'll be quite a surprise. And then the 3, so the 3 who's used to motoring through a to-do list, they'll find themselves lying on the couch watching Netflix and going, I'm so frustrated with myself because I can't move, and not sure why these are their responses. So maybe this is some of the responses you've had. And then that creativity, that unique way of viewing things. This person has become more emotionally intense, and then what they do is they withdraw. So this unique, or this path forward, get incredibly stressed about the Solidarity Fund and the funding of the Solidarity Fund, and then actually get so overwhelmed with their emotional response that they just need to withdraw. So if there's an element of you in a 4, my question would be, like, where are you getting reprieve and how are you recharging? And then the 5, because there's so many demands made of the 5, they actually become increasingly fragmented and moving between multiple elements, and then get quite anxious and can't think because they get so comfortable in the detail. And then the 6, who's been risk avoidant. This is a person who maybe bought loads of blue paper in the beginning of lockdown. They would have played out permutations and scenarios in their head. And again, in that stress response, will continue to do that. And the 7 is usually happy-go-lucky, but under stress become quite incredibly rigid and strict, and which is quite unusual when you're used to this person, or your colleague who's been very happy-go-lucky is now very rule-orientated. So just a different way of responding. And then the 8 who naturally would pick up the talking in a team, can actually sit back and what we so used to, the 8 is taking charge, they now become detached. So again, a very confusing response for us. And the 9 is very good at creating team and connecting. And what they do is they become hyper-focused. And for some friends of mine who are high 9s, I know that at the beginning of COVID, they were rechecking wills and making sure they could get onto each other's bank accounts, people at home, and just doing all that risk audit because of that hyper-vigilance. So I'm incredibly mindful that I'm talking on the Enneagram. So as a question to you, have any of you done the Enneagram? I'm just reading the chat. Have any of you done the Enneagram? And which type resonates with you? Okay, is the chat open?
Yes, Christy, it's enabled.
Okay.
I'm also just thinking we could also ask people just to unmute because it is a
small group.
Yeah, so if they'd love to, I think that would be quite interactive as well.
Great. Okay, so there was a questions or any feedback on the Enneagram. And there we looked at the Enneagram around as a way of gaining insight into ourselves. Okay. So with that in mind, I'm going to move on to the element on teams. Okay, so no comments or input around the Enneagram. And just to recap, the Enneagram is a tool to raise self-awareness. And it will use the tool to understand ourselves and then understand others. And then it's from that understanding others that we can create teams.
Sorry, Christy.
Yeah.
Lauren here. So you would need to do like a strength finder in order to pick up these kind of responses. Would you use a strength finder?
So a strength finder is another useful tool. Absolutely, I love the strength finder. Strength finder is a useful tool to understand yourself and then to share your strengths with another team, with your team members or colleagues to create that insight around teams. So strengths is one, or else there are the login details which we can share for the Enneagram for people to do the Enneagram. So then there's a question moving into teams. So for those of you who've been part of a high-performing team, in your opinion, what is the most important element that contributes to a successful team? Is it trust, empathy, and common purpose as one? Or is it digital access? Organization's business model as number 3? Or having a performance targets? Which one are important elements for a high-performing team?
Can you give us those again, please, Christy?
Sure. Okay, so the first question, so my question to you is, what are, for those of you, when we've been part of a high-performing team, which element contributes to being in a high-performing team? Okay, there we go. If we read the chat, Cecile's posted in the chat
Okay.
that it's that number 1, is it trust, empathy, and common purpose? Or number 2, digital access? 3, business model? Or 4, performance targets? Okay, so we've got someone posting in the chat. It's trust, empathy, and common purpose. Thank you.
Hi, Christy.
Hi.
I think it's number 1, and also understanding the business model.
Okay, it's lovely to hear your voice. Thank you. Okay, so we have...
Hi, Chrissy. I'll say the same. I'll say it's number 1.
Okay,
You know,
trust, empathy, and common purpose.
Yeah, I think before you can set a target, the
Yeah.
certain things that needs to be set straight. There has to be that empathy, that trust, and that form of understanding. You can't just
Okay.
dish out targets and that's it. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Lovely to hear your voice, and thanks for weighing in and sharing your views. Appreciate
So, Christy,
that.
let me
Yes.
throw something in just
Please
so
do.
we can, right? So when we did, and when I led one of my teams, we were target driven environment. Hugely, the whole model was really around targets, and we couldn't understand what was happening with the dynamic of the team because we just couldn't get to those targets. So we did the strength finder, and lo and behold, almost my entire team said that they don't enjoy chasing targets, and we are smack bang in the middle of a target driven environment.
Yeah.
So I mean, when I look at those, you start thinking, oh gosh, where to from here? So I think the environment, the business environment, and the business model is very important.
Absolutely. The understanding the culture fit as we then speak about understanding how can we be a performance orientated organization and allow people to express their strengths and their Enneagram type. So these are wonderful conversations. And here we're talking about, first point is understanding self, me. And then with that understanding, that insight, I then come forward and then create a high-performing team. And teams don't just happen, but we build them. We come together and there's a beginning and we work as a team and we carry on working. Teams don't just form, we build teams. But the question is how much time do we actually spend focusing in on teams? I mean, just some wonderful examples during COVID. I did a team session for an organization. And one of the things I always do, even if it's on Teams or Zoom, because I know connectivity issues, but I say, hi, can you all put your cameras on? So I just need to, in my language, I just need to connect with you and see your beautiful faces. And then some people said, oh, it's so nice to see this person. And this person had been working part of their team for 3 months. And they speak on WhatsApp. There's our chat. They emailing each other, but they'd never, ever seen each other. What do you think of that?
Christy, I'm able to launch the poll now. So I think it would be wonderful for everyone just to vote.
Oh, great. Let's pause for a minute.
See?
Yeah, we can see it. I can see the poll.
Perfect. Let's give them a few seconds.
Okay, so we're asking you to go to the screen and then there's a poll. And if you could vote, submit your answer.
Okay, looks like most people voted. So I'm going to end the poll and then share the results and then you can talk to it.
Brilliant. Oh, there we go. 89%, trust, empathy, and common purpose. Okay, well done. And then the business model. So I'm gonna weave these results in, and then I was talking about my client and how a team member had been part of the team for 3 months. So they were recruited in April. 3 months later in July, I did a team session. It was like the 14th of July, and the first time they'd seen their colleague. What impact would that have on coming together, building, and working together? So it makes just highlights how important teams are. And as Patrick Leonard-Coney says, teamwork remains one of the most sustainable competitive advantages, and it's untapped. But it's around what are we doing, what am I doing, and what are we doing to build our team? Knowing that I'm an Enneagram 7 or my colleagues are an Enneagram 1, and how do we work together as a 7 and a 1?
Sorry, Christy.
Yes.
Sorry.
No.
It's you again. Do you think if we asked the question, what is the most important element that contributes to a successful team? Those 4. Do you think pre-COVID we would have still said number 1?
Okay, great. Are you segueing into a lovely piece of research? So Google did a 2-year research project, and I think let's discuss it. So Faraz asked the question, what our answers have changed. And then I'll share some research from Dan Ariely that he's done pre-COVID and during COVID. So Google did some research. They looked at all their teams and their businesses, and they said, which teams are performing best? Performing best? Okay, they're achieving their targets. Performing best is there's minimal or low turnover in the team. Performing their best, the engagement surveys are well. So people are enjoying working within their team, and they are thriving and loving what they're doing, and they're delivering. Okay, over 2 years, they studied teams. Number 1 factor that came out for those teams, they have social safety. Those teams have social safety. Social safety is I can come to work and contribute. There's no fear of retribution. There's no fear. I can come and show up and be my best. Social safety is I am comfortable to voice my views. Social safety was weighed, and they did some qualitative research that everyone speaks. You just think of yourself within your team. Is your voice being heard? I mean, especially as Faraz said, in terms of how we managing to share views when we're muting each other all the time. I'm sure you've seen some wonderful memes going around. 2020, the year of mute. Pardon? Can you say that? Okay. So it just begs the question of social safety. I can come to work and I can be my best. I can share views on a project without a fear of retribution, and I can come in and bring my whole self to work. Some brilliant research, I'm linking, some wonderful research was done by Dan Ariely, and if you don't know him, please find him. He is just honestly I've got a fascination for quantitative research, and he does social science, brilliant quantitative research. And he has done a number of, he's a behavioral economist, and he's particularly focused now on motivation and employee motivation. And he got curious around engagement and motivation. So he looked at data from 2006 until pre-COVID. So that's a chunk of data from Gallup, Boston Consulting, asked Deloitte, asked all their data, and pulled through the elements of what motivates an employee. Pre-COVID, number 1 factor that motivates an employee is not the office and the office furniture. It's not the logo. It's not the salary per se, but it's around a perception of fairness. That gender being treated fairly, salaries are fair, and people are being treated fairly. well as on that fairness, is there's an equal opportunity to come to work and do my best. And then within COVID, he did a wonderful body of research around motivation. And there are 3 important factors around what's motivating employees within COVID. And again, it comes back to the question of how has the data shifted with COVID and without COVID in teams. So the third most important, ranked third, is a sense that an organization is moving in the right direction. So employees want to work as part of an organization that is relevant and is moving in the right direction. So there again links into the business model and the strategy, that it's aligned and it's working together. Second is inclusive innovation. So those organizations that have managed to navigate lockdown, remote working, where people can brainstorm and come together collectively, those employees are highly motivated, which is a challenge for people to really share their views, brainstorm, come together and participate collectively. And again, the number one is feeling appreciated. Feeling appreciated, feeling noticed, giving affirmation, being acknowledged. So when building a team and motivating people, these are some interesting pointers for us to think about. When building a team, and a team where we're going to stand up and make a difference, and we're going to stand up and shine, building a team that wins, because what we know is that leadership and teams are what are going to make a significant contribution in our world post-COVID. And the teams that have come together and contributed the vaccine, they haven't been part of the same organization. They've been cross-functional. They've come together with a common purpose. Purpose is important. And the body of work on Simon Sinek and understanding why am I here and what is my purpose? Why are you here? What is your contribution? Often we introduce ourselves by, I'm Christy, I'm an industrial clinical counseling psychologist. That's your what. How you do your what, but why? What's your stand? What's your stand around? Mine is around education and transformation in our country. That's bottom line. So how do I do that every single day, and how does it show up? So I will make statements and make a stand around those elements. And as I said earlier, I'm seeing organizations where we think we just in hand washing soap. Oh, no, we're so much more than that. We saw that with South African breweries. One of my clients I was working with, I'm sure you also heard the stories where lockdown happened, no alcohol. Where did they stand up in distributing equipment for PPE? What's our stand and where we're making a contribution? So I'm encouraging you to carry on doing that body of work with Simon Sinek and your purpose. And if there's an alignment between my purpose and then the organization that I work with and the team purpose, then amazing results can happen. Then we can truly drive performance targets, but we're not just driving the performance target in abstraction. So I really am excited to begin to hear what your views are and to hear some of your thoughts around this input thus far.
Christy.
So as a last model, sorry, a question?
No, I wanted to make a comment.
Please.
I realized with one of the team members that I used to struggle with in terms of her keeping time, doing her work on time, that during lockdown, she was very productive. So my thinking is she did all of that because the hours were flexible. She will respond to my emails. She will respond to my WhatsApp messages promptly. Whereas in the office, I really, really struggle with her. So I think the one thing that you mentioned was that the reason why there was productivity, it's because of the vision and people working together. I think we work better together apart while she's at home and I'm at my home and I'm able to communicate with her. So for me, lockdown really fixed, I don't know if I should say our relationship, but it fixed how we relate to each other. We communicate better because we're apart. Yeah.
And I think that's a lovely example of where there have been tensions in pre-COVID or maybe misinterpretations. Now that I can understand why this person does what they do, I mean, it's natural. I expect the world to be a 7. Everyone has got a very different personality type and everyone's got a very different Enneagram type, and they will show up according to the Enneagram type. So when you watch that person's behavior and listen to their behavior and listen to their words, then you can be asking yourself, what Enneagram type do I think they are? So in creating teams based on the Project Aristotle research and the work from Dan Ariely, there's at the base of the pyramid is trust. The base of the pyramid is trust. And how do we gain trust? Is through using a tool like an Enneagram or strengths and to create that team effectiveness of how we're working. And then from there, it's appreciating of how we can have conversations with a robust and give each other solid feedback so we can grow in commitment, accountability to achieve our results. But as you all quite rightly said, if we're just going to focus on the results without the bottom of the pyramid, we're not going to get anywhere. So some insights? Yes.
Yeah, I think, Chrissy, you are absolutely right. Trust is very important. I think last week I had a conflict with my boss, and then I just felt like trust was violated. And being female and emotional, I was affected. I could not focus. I could not concentrate. I couldn't do anything. And moreover, it's not what really he said, but what he did, the way he handled himself. I was shocked because this was the first time I saw him behaving in that particular manner. So I think, Covert has brought a lot of stress on other people, and sometimes their reactions can really, make you lose trust, and that just affects you. Somehow it does have an effect. And I ended up saying to HR, okay, I just need to go for therapy, because I feel like the trust issue, the trust element, which is very, very important to me, I just feel it has been violated, and for that I just need someone externally to just help me to move forward, because once with me you violate trust, everything is just gone. I can't, I just get affected, so you're
Thank you for sharing, and I echo, and I hear what you're saying, is that trust is so critical, and how do we build trust, and how do we how do we build trust, how do we work with trust? And I appreciate this is very difficult, and thanks for speaking in this space.
Open communication, Christian, open communication, transparency, that helps. But unfortunately, you can't be the other person, if they can't communicate maybe effectively, or because my frustration also was the fact that when I'm trying to communicate, he just leaves. He'll just storm out and leave. So you know that maybe they're going through difficult times at home. You know, they don't want to listen. So I think communication as well helps in, you know, in building the trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for speaking. And I've worked with teams that have done the work on building personal trust, understanding that they're all different personalities and how we maybe give each other feedback or have robust conversations, purpose, commitment, accountability, and results have really come together and thrived in COVID. And there are those where there's just been divide, and Microsoft Teams or Zoom has just created another element of isolation and tension. So thanks so much for being in this dialogue right now. What I'd love to do is for you to speak now. And Cecile is going to put you in breakaway groups for 5 minutes. What I'd like you to share is just one insight from this conversation on personal leadership and teams. And then we'll come back. So one insight that you've taken out of this discussion on personal leadership and teams, we'll go into a breakout group, and then we'll come back and have a discussion, and then we'll wrap up. I'm mindful of time.
Thank you, Christy. So just for the least to know, I am going to assign you to the breakout rooms now. It does sometimes happen that you may end up alone in the group. If so, just leave the room and then you'll come back. Also, if you're not comfortable, you're more than welcome to stay in the main room with us. So I'm going to create the room now, and then we'll give you 5 minutes, and then you'll come back.
Thank you so much.
Okay, should be happening now.
Okay, we're back.
Okay, welcome back, everybody.
Yep.
I hope your conversation was as rich as mine. Just give me some sense of what was happening in your dialogue.
Shall I start first?
Yes,
Lucky here.
Yes, Lucky, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of amplified the role of I, especially in terms of now self-reflecting or self-awareness. And for me, again, it's about the power of teams, especially post this period or COVID period. Because I tell you why, the national goals, I'm talking at the government level, be it unemployment, be it economic growth of the country, kind of needs a different approach. And for me, I think approach starting at like a company level in terms of teams, as we're talking about the role of teams now, not just leaders deciding, involving, strengthening the teams and gaining a trust. Because what I learned is where trust is, results are sustainable, but it's a journey to end that. And number two, the reality is it's a journey to form the performing team. So if one believes the team is important, one has to be ready to deal with that dynamic or that reality of it's not easy to form a team, and it's not easy for one to transform like today once you learn your weak points as a leader.
Yeah. And thanks for weighing in, because the link between I can't be part of a team that is transforming and doing magnificent work if I haven't dug deep and done the work on myself.
Definitely.
They're all existing in the same place. Me, we, work, and world. Thank you.
Definitely.
Let's hear in. Let's weigh in.
Yeah,
Anyone
I think,
else?
Christy, from room two, what came out of our conversation is that, with COVID now and so on, and we leading some of these teams, so at times you find that we don't understand these traits, and we see people behaving in particular ways and
completely, I completely resonate with what you say. Why is this person being so rude? Why are they doing this? Oh.
So then you find that, that then, we're not applying the correct interventions to assist them with the stress that they're dealing with, because some people, they've got families. And so I think this now just makes it very important that you understand, the different types, and then just another last point that I just raised, in my organization right now, I think also the level of maturity of the employees, because employees are not don't have the same level of maturity. So some of them, you find that they, especially the more experienced employees, they are thriving, they are doing well, they are much more disciplined. But now we're having to use trackers for some of the junior staff members, to make sure that, we get the performance. So I think, but those points, the trust, the empathy, and it's all important. But I just think, and also we're just seeing people's true colors, coming out of these engagements, and so
and again we are being asked to stand up in areas that are outside our job function, and there is a dichotomy between tracker on emails and seeing what's going on. I work with a Gabani and Co, an audit firm, and they were like, what are we doing with these junior clerks? They don't know anything. Sorry if I'm like, but again, how are we engaging, and what are we doing, and how can we create a collaborative environment? I think is critical.
Yes,
and
exactly.
So
I was just saying, I think that's correct. We're also dealing with clerks here, so I'm part of the knowledge group, and so that's why we're having most of our issues. Thank you so much.
So lovely having you in the room and having this dialogue. We can carry on.
One thing I learned, again, maybe I may just share. I've always believed I'll be part of strategy crafting this organization. Yes. And I've always believed that is the most important part. No, sorry, most people have always believed that's the most important part. And I always argue differently. And I tell you why. I've always believed that the challenge is on execution. And people didn't really believe me that much, and will adopt plans basically to execute strategies. And I always said, guys, it's not about how structured these plans are and scientifically informed and all that. It's about the art of executing.
I love that word.
And why I said that is because I realized at the core of executing, it's engagement. Because when you have to communicate what is expected out of the strategic plans and all that, one has to communicate. If you're standing there without integrity or not trustworthy, I'm telling you, you are already weakened before you even go any further.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And the other thing I learned, again, it's when you engage, because I think it's the most powerful thing. You bring one aspect, again, which is now your leadership style. It's one thing to do the right thing, to be talking to people, but the way you talk, listen, guys, I don't care. This is what we must be achieving. Yes, you are engaging, but the how part is another story, which is your function of a leadership style. So that's what I'm saying. The art part, or the artistic part from you as a leader, is I think it's gonna set the tone for everything.
So again, I mean, just coming back to the question, and I know I'm interrupting and I'm mindful of time. So are we in the business of an audit firm and with our clerks, or are we in the position of growing leaders, and all leaders that come through our doors will be, robustly South African and grounded in their South Africanness, but have grown in their leadership and teams and in their maturity? Who are we? What are we? Because I think it's often, sometimes we'll say we're just South African breweries and we distribute beer. But I think we need to challenge ourselves, or I challenge myself around, we're collectively South Africans. and how we stand up and how we speak up. And I know myself, in terms of, some of you will know me in terms of my family and the family that I have. There've been moments when I've needed to speak up in South Africa, but if I haven't done the work on myself, on who I am as an Enneagram 7 and how the 9 challenges me where I don't want to speak up, it's not okay. It's not okay. I need to speak into injustice and inequality, and right there in that moment, that's when I need to speak up. Sorry, I'm speaking too much. Let me hear from
No, you're not.
Lucky.
I'm enjoying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lucky. Go ahead.
Much wisdom into that. No, I was just merely illustrating that, saying teams. I believe that post-COVID, I think the role of teams is going to be more amplified. However, for teams to be successful and robust and consistently giving us those sustainable results, one has to invest more time on that part of his or her own leadership styles. If not in line, transform, accept that something, because the secret is there. Teams are a function of us. We make it, or we just distract them.
Yeah,
so performance of the organization rests there. That's what I believe in.
Lovely dialogue. Okay, let's hear from some others. And
was there room 1? Was there no room 1, Christy?
Yes.
We were another group. Krista, did you want to say something? You can unmute and share.
No, Prof. I had a situation where I was in a group with Tabani, and we were chatting, and then I got moved to the group with Farah and Lucky. So I was really in between groups, really. So I don't know. I can't add much because I was cut off between groups. But no, it's fine. I'm fine for now.
So we've had some wonderful discussions.
Yeah, and you know, Christy, something that I've discovered with some of the junior people in organizations is they're actually sitting in fear. And the fear is, are we going to get told at the end of this month that we don't have jobs next month? Are we going to be told at the end of December? Are we going to be told at the end of Jan? So also as leaders, I think we must also be mindful of that fear that exists with a lot of the teams around. As individuals, and also those that are in teams that we lead. That's kind of like with a lot of people, it's an unspoken fear. They don't want to, they just rather keep the status quo until, but it is a fear. It is a fear with a lot, and especially the junior staff.
Yeah, it is a fear, even in my own organization where I work. Such that it's very difficult to even discipline staff. You can't. The minute if you just call someone for a meeting or you call it disciplinary, they're thinking you just want to get them fired. They start getting sick, they get anxiety. If they made a mistake, I'm telling you, and then you call them on it, they're just gonna be gone for the whole month. They take a sick leave and they're gone for the whole month because they just imagining the worst. They're thinking, oh yeah, they're getting fired. So yeah, I don't know how we can instill confidence in them, while still, expecting them to produce the results and, and perform, because we're there to perform, but I'm telling you, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to meet targets. It's a challenge to get results. I'm in a property environment. So we set these high targets and, we're just not meeting them. And you're trying to push the stuff. They just take sick leave all the time. And then they just getting flu. One person gets infected with COVID-19. We're going to be gone for a good 7 days, just to, to clean up. And, it's just a mess. And I don't know, for me, I've just decided to just go with the flow. This year, I'm just, yeah, it's been hard. It's been hard. I don't even remember myself like setting, meeting one target that was set for me. When there's an 80% target, I'm meeting 65.
And I think that is okay. The expectations, if you were getting a 4 on a PDP or 80% on an expectation and it's coming through to 65, I think this is 2020 and the expectations we have on ourselves. I know myself, maybe you like this. There's that goal, that list I do of to-do lists, and it's like I need to halve it. I am much slower. My brain is not all there, and it's November of 2020. So how much grace are we giving ourselves?
Exactly.
I think it's really important.
Last thing from Lucky.
No, don't be the last, please, Lucky. No.
No, I might as well share one of the things I learned recently about myself. And I believe you're correct in terms of what you said earlier on about what motivates people. I've always thought money, overtime, incentives, and all that. In this period, having made myself available, people, just the fact that they can come to me, especially in the division that I overlook, just share with me the stories, parent this, my sister this is how COVID is affecting me, or this is what is happening to my brother. This is just opening up. I got a shock because when I opened myself up for anyone to come see me, at the same time things were happening, we were cutting costs, shut overtime, shut this thing. I was expecting more complaints as people came to me about overtime. But I was saying, thank God when I reflect now, the fact that people came and just dished out all those issues to me, I realized I'm dealing with a different problem or something new, which I never thought about people.
Yeah.
Just opening up for someone to come and just dish out issues on your shoulders over and above yours and not even complain about yours. Just keeping quiet about yours and just opening up. I realized something powerful.
Listen, I completely agree with you. So, John, two stories on that. I've got a colleague friend. He's a lecturer at UKZN, and he told me that he was so overwhelmed that so it was like end of level 5, getting into level 4, and he phoned his honor students. And the honor student, a male, 21, burst into tears. Wow. Wept. This is the first time someone has phoned me. I've been in level 5 lockdown by myself. This is the first connection I've had. And then please, I'll send you the link, Dan Ariely. So he does research repeatedly. His mission is to alleviate poverty. And he says repeatedly, incentive organizations where you incentivize with a pizza or you incentivize with 10 Rand, they actually demotivate performance.
So Christy, it's amazing. Room 3, Precious and Lucky. What did I say when we finished? I said that the one thing that I thought about so much over this last 6 months was that person sitting in their flat in a cabin fever, I said, I mean, I really felt for that individual who couldn't even walk outside because now we were like, we couldn't. Yes, Prof. Empathy. I really thought it was okay for us who got families around us. Okay, we could cope. There was this, and you could just, if you had a yard, you could just go out in the yard for a few minutes and come back in if you were tired of your kids or something. But I mean, I said, spare thought, over that 6 months, the hectic time for that individual. Now that person must still perform, or maybe go back to lead a team or be part of a team and still function optimally.
I'm just
and that was me, Farah.
I'm just weighing in.
I'm saying that was me. I'm here in the Eastern Cape. I'm based in East London. My family is from Pietermaritzburg, and so I moved to the Eastern Cape on a new job. And I could not refuse their offer. So I came here at the end of January with my 5-year-old son. So been tough, I'm telling you. Stayed in a hotel for like 3 to 4 months with my son, and then we moved out. We we stayed in a hotel for 4 months, and then after 4 months, then the company was like, okay, we've carried you, go on your own. Had to be in a flat alone with my child. If I can't leave him when I'm going for groceries, you know, to buy groceries or whatever, I have to go with him because he's still young, so he can hurt himself, you know, do something to himself. So I have to go with him everywhere I go, and still have that fear, you know, is he gonna get infected or not? You know, even when I got flu or he had flu, I still had to perform. You know, there was so much on me. At some point, I took anxiety pills. I treated myself, I diagnosed myself with depression. And then like for like good 2 to 3 months, but then I don't know what happened. I snapped out of it, went back to meditation and doing things that are very important to me that, you know, would assist you in getting your mind and your whole being centered and grounded. So after doing those things, I was able to just cut those pills and everything and became my normal self. So yeah, it was tough, but it is very important as well to do things that feed your spirit. That's where your strength comes. You know, the minute you forget those things and you throw them out of the window, you go downhill. You destroy yourself. You suffer from anxiety, from depression, fears. Go through your wheel, and you call Old Mutual. You plan your death. You know, literally, that's what you do. You plan your death, and you know, you make all those plans. You phone people, tell them where to find this and that. You literally plan your death. But once you snap out,
please don't emphasize that.
and then you start doing things that make you happy. You know, do things that make you happy. You can still meditate.
Completely. Just
you know.
Amazing how we've moved to a resilient building conversation. So thanks for sharing so much. And we've just naturally moved from individual teams and to now resilient building, which is a lovely place to be in November. So I just want to share, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be with each and every one of you. Krista, have I heard from you? How was your group? And Thokoza, just before we end off, are we all good?
They must have gotten tired with group 3 voices.
Nati represented our group. So
okay, great. Okay.
I think maybe just to add something, Christy, you know,
Yes.
I found a very effective intervention in our organization. And it's been very useful to our team. You know, we've got some partners that are operating in different parts of the world, in London and so on. So we've got a WhatsApp group, and I found it quite motivating. After lockdown, we all agreed that each one of us will do an activity for 30 minutes, 3 times a week, whether it's reading a book, whether it's walking, whether it's going to the gym, but you need to post evidence on that WhatsApp group. Yeah. So if you've been running, you need to, whatever app that you're using, you need to share a screen. If you're reading, you need to post a picture of yourself or the picture of the book or something. So I think something like that, it's been very useful. It's been going for quite some time. You know, there's also what you call a spreadsheet where we update what we did at the hours, you know. So I found that quite
These are lovely ideas to be that accountability partner, just to help us be accountable as we make these changes. So this has been a wonderful time to come together and reflect on ourselves and to appreciate that how we recover from the COVID pandemic isn't up to leadership and organizations, which is us in the room. This is an opportunity to come together and to do the work on your purpose, to stand up and speak up. And to consider a tool. The Enneagram is one tool that'll help you get to know yourself. There are other tools, and then the impact that this has on teams. 2020 has been a year of VUCA on steroids. Leadership is around standing up and having a significant contribution. And we've seen where there's polarization and inequality and divide, that is around the team. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Prof, we
Hi,
need
Farah.
you to bring this all together for us. Thank you.
Okay.
Please,
Thank you
if
so
you
much.
can.
I'm really not going to keep everyone too long because I know we had the issues in the beginning, but I just want to thank Christy. This was such an engaging and interactive session. You could see by the engagement, everybody had a lot to share. And I think it was just great because maybe we started off thinking about teams, they're there to bring results, but as we engage these discussions, it became very clear that the people side matters as well. So I'm seeing that link again to leadership and management. It's about people and the results. You can't have one without the other. And as someone mentioned, I think what's important as well is leadership styles. So how do we lead the people in the team? In all probability, they may be experts, they may be people who are independent critical thinkers. So how do you manage them? Because that could make or break the situation. And I think what came out as well was organizational culture, the sort of how do we do things around here. So these were like some of the key elements that I thought of touching on. And then just 5 minutes, if you guys are happy to stay, but just a few things that I thought of as well. Some of the dilemmas as well that people have when they're in a team is that they've got to give up their independence. So yourself as a leader or manager, how are you going to make that work? So you could have people in your team who prefer to work alone. You could have a situation where there are free riders. So people who are part of that team, they melting away, but they're not doing their bit, okay? The other thing would be, what are some of the issues that teams have? And I think Christy touched on this lack of trust. The team, they're just not gelling, they're not working together. Conflict, we need to have a certain degree of conflict. There's commitment as well. People may not be committed. Accountability. So if I'm part of a team, I may be doing less than if it were me as an individual. And then also, I may not just put in all the hard work that I'm supposed to. And I think some other considerations would be, like Christy said, what's the purpose of the team? Do we have the right skill set, the diversity of skills? Are people clear on their roles? What am I supposed to do? Are you as a leader giving them clear guidance, or is it ambiguous? Do they have to think about what they have to do on a given day? Team size as well, and ultimately who's going to be part of that. So I think the key thing is when we're trying to bring that team together, like Christy emphasized, it's trust, empathy, making sure the team has a chance to interact together. And I think Nati gave some very good suggestions, given that we're in this virtual world. So how do we get them to work together as a collective? So bearing in mind that it's not just about the results, but it's about the people and the results. And I think what comes through as well is, as a leader, how are you encouraging your team to communicate? If it's just virtual, are we just meeting on Zoom to talk about work, or are we doing more? How are we working through conflict, especially in the virtual world? How do you allow people to have their say? How do you take into account different personality types? So I think what's very clear is it's not just about the task, it's about the people, the relationships, and as a leader or manager, you need to be cognizant of if there's conflict, it could be about the job or the task itself, or about the people side of things. Another reason for conflict could be resources. Maybe we don't have the time, we don't have the money, etc. We're not clear on our roles, our responsibilities. And then, of course, how do we handle conflict? So some of us may be conflict avoidance. I don't want to fight, I'm going to shrink away. Others will be very assertive and they'll have their voices heard. Others may give in easily. So what's the best way of handling that conflict that may arise in your team? So I think these are some of the key things that sort of touches in with what Christy said. And from the leadership VUCA perspective, it's change, it's complex. So be adaptable, be agile, be resilient in the moment. Don't just say this is it and it's staying like this for the next 6 months to 1 year. Don't. 2020 has taught us something else. And then, of course, just listening, true listening, listening to people. And again, how do you do that virtually? Bearing in mind that quite often our cameras are off, so I don't see you. Part of it was to, look at the non-verbal. So I think, without going into too much time, those are some of the key points that I think are important. And just again, thanks to Christy for a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have
Can
a
you please
wonderful,
share
blessed...
your slides? Sorry,
Sure.
Christy.
Sorry.
Please share those slides.
Sorry. So guys, before we all go, just to wrap it up, there's one thing that I've found here. Besides the fact that I feel like I'm sitting around the table with a group of friends having a real robust discussion about leadership and our challenges. But I think all of us that are here, I think the time was right for us to have this discussion now, because from what I'm picking up, there was a need for it. There was a need for us to also speak about it. So I'm just a show of hands. Who would like us to twist Christy's arm? I think we need another session. Lucky?
It's a must. Both hands are up.
Well, I think we need another session, Christy, before the year's out. So it gives all of us something to think about, some work to do over the festive period. I mean, we don't know how festive the festive period is going to be, but at least when we go back to our teams in January, we've understood ourselves a lot better. A lot better. So yes, we will work on that. We will definitely work on that. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I have to tell you, I'm so grateful for the participation. I'm so grateful for you two ladies making the time. And I'm really, 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 really happy with today's session. Please, before you all go, on Monday, we've got another exciting session coming up. Charlotte Mokwena from Cecil is back with us. That's a 90-minute mentoring session. So please look out for that ad as well. If you don't see the ad, please contact Bongiwe at BMF KZN online. Please, to make sure that you get that ad. That is going to be amazing as well next week. If you're not a member, please, you need to become a member of the BMF. You don't have to be Durban or KZN, can be in the Eastern Cape, can be in Gauteng, as long as you get that form and you go and you get online and you apply. So from me, I'm so grateful. Thank you all. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
And hopefully we will see you all next week. Thanks, Ntokozo. Thank you.
Thanks,
Lucky,
everyone.
you guys.
Yep.
Nati.
Yes.
Krista.
Bye.